The Florida man suspected of sending at least 14 mail bombs to Democratic Party leaders and vocal critics of President Trump is in police custody and faces 5 federal charges. The 56-year-old Cesar Sayoc was arrested yesterday and is expected to appear in court on Monday. The most recent package found yesterday was addressed to wealthy Democratic Party donor and activist Tom Steyer in California. Joining us now via Skype from St. Petersburg, Florida, is Trevor Aaronson, Executive Director of the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting and a contributing writer for The Intercept. So, Trevor, what do we know now? And 24 hours have passed since the arrest about this individual.
So for what we know about Cesar Sayoc was that he was born in New York and ended up moving to South Florida when he was a teenager, graduating from a local high school here. Early in his life, he aspired to be a professional wrestler. At one point, he had traveled with a male review show as a male stripper. But what the family attorney tells us is that basically, this is a man who tried and failed at many things in his life and just never had much success in life, but also really kind of had trouble finding a place to fit in this world. And after Trump started running for president in 2015, that's when Sayak began to kind of get engaged in politics for the first time. And starting earlier this year is when he became very active on social media, started sharing, memes about Hillary Clinton and George Soros and various other people who ended up receiving pipe bombs.
And how much, right now, the Twitter account is no longer up, but what kind of patterns were visible to either other people who were harassed by him or law enforcement that was looking for more evidence to corroborate that this was the individual?
So the activity on Twitter itself did not necessarily point to his being the serial bomber, although in hindsight you can see these connections. I mean, that he was making threats, but ultimately how police linked him was through a fingerprint that was on one of the pipe bombs. Cesar Sayoc had been arrested in South Florida a dozen times since the late 1990s, and during those arrests he had submitted fingerprints, and ultimately one of those fingerprints proved to be the same one that was on that pipe bomb package, according to the FBI.
And what are the people that worked with him that were perhaps his family members or friends? What are they saying about this?
A family friend who had represented Caesar in a bankruptcy explained that he viewed Caesar as being someone who was like a 14-year-old in a grown man's body. That this was a man who was emotionally and intellectually immature, but also was someone that was not really moored to any kind of sense of person or history. And when I say sense of history, I mean sense of personal history. This was a man who apparently was Filipino and Italian, but he identified on social media and to others as being Native American, a member of the Seminole Indian tribe. None of that was apparently true. And certainly the created identity that he had in recent years was very much linked to supporting Donald Trump, but then also, kind of falling to some of the far right memes and some of the conspiracy theories we see trafficked by some of Donald Trump's most ardent supporters.
All right, Trevor Aaronson, Executive Director of the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting and a contributing writer for The Intercept. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.